crowning moment of badass. Somalia, Northwest River Valley. The Black Shark didn't look particularly like turning around anyway. Nonetheless, the team instantly reacted to Pred's call for diversionary action. Noise first. While still under cover, he dropped and checked the hubcap-sized drum magazine from his AA-12 assault shotgun. He just reloaded, so inside it were 32 12-gauge shells, but they were all double-aught buckshot. He let out a resigned sigh as he reseated it. If he'd had slugs, they might actually have stood a chance of penetrating the weakened armor glass in front of the Black Shark's cockpit. Buckshot, with about 9 pellets in each load, would make a real mess of a human, never mind a Zulu, but it had little penetrating power. Though it just might do as a distraction. He stepped out to the edge of the tree line, brought the weapon up, its fixed stock tied into his shoulder, and depressed the trigger. Shotgun blast after blast, 5 per second, boomed off, and scores of pellets pelted and ricocheted off the face of the Black Shark like horizontal steel rain. It must have been a mesmerizing sight for those inside. Anyway, Noise hoped it was. Nonetheless, for the entire 6.4 seconds it took to empty that drum mag, he fully expected to see the autocannon blossom fire and deliver him to his liberation. The Mukti, as faithful Sikhs knew it, when he would find a blissful reunification with the Creator. But when the heavy bolt of the shotgun locked back, he was still standing in this world at the edge of the road, and the helo was still hovering at the junction of forest and river over the foot of the bridge, just staring him down. Then the right side window tilted up and open, and the pilot actually leaned out and forward, and started spraying at him with a machine pistol. Noise exercised the better part of valor and dove back into the woods. When he got there, he had a couple of small holes in him. But he was still in this world. Holy shit, Jake thought. He knew the fearsome reputation Sikhs had as warriors, and he had even shared a battlefield or two with the bearded ass-kickers, but he had certainly never seen bravery or badassery like that. Man versus attack helo, toe-to-toe. As Noise went to ground under the full-auto pop-gun barrage unleashed by, of all people, the pilot of the fucking helicopter, Jake popped from the opposite side of the road, leaned around a tree, and engaged the aircraft, which was still hovering with its landing gear less than 10 feet off the deck. That dumbass pilot, and wait, was it a woman? Had just volunteered to give him an open shot at what was, by a very large margin, the most vulnerable part of the aircraft, perhaps the only vulnerable part of the aircraft, namely her. The pilot. His first round crashed into the headrest behind her as she leaned forward. She reacted instantly, turning and engaging Jake. He had to decide whether he was going to be driven under cover or not, whether to shoot it out nose to nose. He decided he was never going to get a better look than this one. None of them were. But as he sighted in again, the window came back down. Damn it. The pilot had evidently had enough of trading rounds, or didn't like the exchange rate anyway. Her little 9x19mm SMG rounds for Jake's 12.7x54mm ones. He cursed under his breath. He'd had one shot and he missed, and he now tried to formulate his next move. Whatever the winning tactics were in a man versus Black Shark fight, they had definitely not been taught to him at the Special Forces Q course. But then, in the next few seconds, he learned where such tactics evidently were taught. At the unit operator training course, because he was about to get a master class. At first, all he saw was a man-mountain emerging from the steep bank that led down to the river. He was a broad-shouldered, angry-visaged, vengeful god, rivulets of water still streaming off his massive and massively muscled body. He was running and leaping and powering up the slope, and as all of him finally made it to level ground, he accelerated his enormous bulk even more, faster than should have been possible, straight at the side of the hovering helo. And with a mighty shove of his tree-trunk back leg, he leapt through the air and up onto the side of it. The bank of the river was covered in thick mud and riddled with tree roots, but even at 325 pounds, Predator's power-to-weight ratio was prodigious, so he powered up it like King Kong climbing the Empire State Building, all dominance and rage and unreflective belief in his own indestructibility. What Pred really couldn't understand, as he unclipped his rifle, let it fall in the mud behind him, grabbed 2 grenades with a single alien-face sucker-sized hand, and pulled the pins, was how the hell Homer had managed to rescue swim his ass to safety. When the SUV went off the bridge, both of them whirling inside it like socks in a clothes washer spin cycle gone horribly wrong, picking up speed at 9.8 meters per second, and then crashing into the river and going straight to the bottom, it had been Homer who maintained consciousness while the blackness took Predator. He didn't know whether it was due to blunt head trauma, G-forces, the spinning, or the impact with the water, and he didn't care. All he knew was he had blacked out and would have drowned to death in seconds. But that righteous, God-fearing Navy SEAL had somehow hauled his 325-pound ass out of an SUV that was two-thirds buried in the silty river bottom, gotten him to the surface, and then swum both of them to the bank. Both of them in full combat gear, and both with their rifles still clipped to them. That shit should have been by no means remotely possible. But Homer had somehow done it. Whatever open water survival magic they taught these dudes at Coronado and Dam Neck, Predator sure wanted some. Anyway, he was damned glad Homer had it. He was alive because of it. And to repay him, he'd left his ass behind, racing up the bank faster than the SEAL could follow. He knew Homer wouldn't like it, wouldn't appreciate the unilateral solo attack. But he didn't have to like it because it was happening. When Predator powered over the crest of the bank onto level ground around the base of the bridge, the hovering black shark was directly ahead of him, no more than 25 feet away, and it was still facing away. Awesome, Pred thought. This might even work. As he rounded the tail boom and ducked under the left stabilizer, he instantly felt the exhaust from the left side jet engine warming his river-chilled skin and then scorching it. But he carried on into it, pushing off and leaping into the air like a foxtrot, or the zombie of Michael fucking Jordan with a 48-inch vertical leap. With his free left hand, he reached up and grabbed the left stub wing, using his ridiculous arm and upper body strength, plus his momentum, to pull himself up and over it, his whole body sliding across its horizontal surface. That wing protruded from the base of the engine, which had two openings in it, exhaust port in the rear, intake port on the front. And as Pred slid by, he slam-dunked one of the grenades into the exhaust port and the other into the intake, and then he slid off the front of the wing, which took him right by the left side of the cockpit. As he flew by, he stuck one finger out and jammed it into the cockpit glass. He didn't guess they'd miss that. He hit the mud just in front of the helicopter, then tumbled and rolled, coming to rest in a sitting position. He spun around, because he wanted to see this next bit. The pilot and gunner were both looking down at him like he had 4 heads and 6 penises, all of them on fire. The 2 grenades exploded, shooting flame and metal debris out both sides of the engine, and it screamed like a stricken dinosaur. Eyes still wide like saucers, the pilot used the power she had left to back them away from the forest, climb a few dozen feet like it was the hardest altitude any aircraft ever gained, and then finally disappear, smoking, shrieking, and shaking, over the top of the forest on the far side of the river. Pred looked up over his left shoulder when he heard a gravelly voice speaking to him deadpan. "Yeah, I remember the first time I took out an attack helo by myself with grenades." It was Jake. He reached down to help him up. Kate and Noyes were also walking up, weapons slung and jaws on their chests, amazed to be alive, utterly gobsmacked at how it had happened, not at all sure they'd just seen what they just saw. Noyes said, "While you are alive, conquer death, and you shall have no regrets in the end. Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Truly, Predator, you have conquered death." Looking up into Pred's eyes, Kate had only 2 words. "God damn, dude!"